We're diving again into the world of plant nutrition. So to grow a plant needs sunlight, water, and nutrients. Sunlight and water are pretty easy to understand. Nutrients, a little bit more complicated. And that's where fertilizers come in. So you've seen fertilizer before, you've seen bags of fertilizer. Your supervisor probably already told you about you're going to apply 6-25-25 or 18-10-18 or whatever number combination you learned. But now we're going to talk about what that means. And if you're barely starting with fertilizer, here's what you're going to see. So I'm going to put over here a picture of what I'm talking about. Usually fertilizers have this 3-number sequence. But what does that even mean? For people like myself that have been looking into plants for a while, we need to know that. And for anybody that recommends fertilization, especially your supervisor, they need to know what the fertilizer is for. So usually we base ourselves on what's on that fertilizer. And one of the simple ways to see that is, what does those 3 numbers mean? Why am I only talking about those 3 numbers and not a wide variety of other fertilizers that exist out in the world? Is because we mainly use something called NPK fertilizer, which is those 3 numbers. N, I gave it away, N, P, and K. One of those numbers means N, nitrogen. There are some situations where you're going to see that the P and the K don't really stand for phosphorus and potassium, really. But for the purpose of this video and this training, and you are now learning about fertilizer and what they do and what they're for, we're going to call it nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium. The first number is going to relate to the N, to the nitrogen. So if you have, for example, a 6, 25, 25, that will mean that the 6, it's 6 parts of nitrogen. There is a 25 over there, that's the second one on that NPK, which is phosphorus. And the last one is going to be another 25 that's going to say, okay, this is K, potassium. So what does that tell me as the grower if I'm asking you, or your supervisor is asking you, go and apply 6-25-25? That fertilizer has less nitrogen because it's only 6, and has higher potassium and higher phosphorus, right? So I need to understand what those things do for the plant, and that's what we're going to talk about right now. Let's start with nitrogen. Nitrogen may be one of the most important nutrients for the plants. They, especially in the nursery, they are the ones that make the plant grow green, leafy, and tall. So if you want your plants to look green and tall and very leafy, you will have to apply nitrogen. Without the nitrogen, your plants are going to look pale and very weak. So I'm going to get a little bit technical in this part, which is nitrogen is a key component of something called amino acids. And amino acids are a building block for the production of protein and chlorophyll, which is something that plants need to produce photosynthesis, to produce food through photosynthesis. Okay, all of those words, if you are not familiar with them, we can talk about them in a different video. But if you are not familiar with them, do not worry about that right now. Think this way: nitrogen, and it's needed to make plants grow big and nice and leaf and green. That's what you need to know. But if you want to go more into depth, read about amino acids, read about proteins and chlorophyll and the process of photosynthesis, which is, for me at least, fascinating, the way that plants produce their own food. That's why you need nitrogen. But in the nursery level, that N means grow tall, grow green, grow lots of leaves. Okay? Next we have P. That means phosphorus. And phosphorus, the importance of phosphorus for us in the nursery is that it helps produce nice, strong roots. That's not the only thing, but for the purpose, again, of this video and this training, phosphorus, think about roots. Think about growth and tall and green on nitrogen. Think about roots with phosphorus. So phosphorus also helps the plant to produce energy. And again, we're not going to go into depth the way that the plant produces energy, but that's what phosphorus is for. So it produces good roots, fruit, flower and fruit as well, because if you have flowers, that's where the fruit come from. So your plant is not producing fruit, maybe take a look at phosphorus. Maybe take a look at adding some phosphorus in there. Maybe take a nutrient sample like we talked about before, okay? So nitrogen, tall and green, phosphorus, nice roots, nice flowers, nice fruit. Very simplistic way of explaining phosphorus, but please, for the purpose of the nursery, that's what I wanted you to get out of this video, okay? And the last one on that trifecta is potassium. So potassium, I'm gonna talk about in a very funny way here. So potassium is actually the little soldiers in that plant. They protect that plant. They help to protect that plant against diseases and make that plant stronger. So potassium is a really, really essential one, because potassium, just like the other two and their siblings, potassium help that plant to move water and nutrient throughout that plant. But again, for the purpose of this video and the purpose of this training, potassium is the one that helps to make the plant stronger, to strengthen that cell wall. Cell wall is basically that wall that exists in the plant cell, and the stronger it is, the nicer, the more robust the plants are, and the more resistant to the effect of diseases it is. You will notice that if a plant is weak, they will succumb to diseases and even insects. You're going to see insects in plants that are weaker way more than you're going to see in a plant that is stronger. I'm going to see if I have a picture of that, but there are mites, for instance. You can look at a bed, and if a portion of that bed is nice and green and healthy, the mites don't really go in there as much. But if the plant is weak and yellowing, you're gonna see a ton of mites in there. So that's because if you are an attacking army like the mites, which one would you rather attack? A weak place or a stronger place, right? But you, in this case, you are the defense. So you are going to put that potassium to protect that plant, to make sure that those cell walls are very strong and they can protect themselves. So the cell walls are basically that castle, that fort that you build around that tree, so the nitrogen and the phosphorus can do their work to produce that root and that growth as healthy as they can. If you want to learn more about in-depth potassium and phosphorus and nitrogen, more technical and actually what they do inside of the plant level, please make sure that you ask me or your supervisor, or even do some nice Google search in there, or do some search on the internet, and there's a fascinating amount of information about what's phosphorus, what's potassium, what's nitrogen, and what they do on the plant. They are not the only things though. There are a lot of other ones that are also important. So another one that you can see as kind of like a soldier, but just in a different system, is calcium. Calcium is also very good at protecting that plant and making that plant stronger. So think about an army. You have the different groups, and they do different things, but they all protect that castle. And that's what calcium is there for as well. Calcium also helps on the growth of roots, because it makes that a lot stronger, let's say, and also make the cell wall stronger. So I'm trying not to get you technical. I'm trying to briefly talk to you about what they do, thinking in a way of protection, but also they are not really like sometimes we talk about they are the food of the plant. Well, they are kind of, because they help the plant produce food. So you could say that they are the material that the plant needs to then produce food, okay? So that's where those fertilizers come from. There is a ton of other names: magnesium, sulfur, chlorine, molybdenum, manganese. You're gonna see and hear a lot of these names and numbers as you work more and more with fertilizer. But for this first video about nutrients, I wanted you to focus on those three first: N, P, and K, and then go into another ones that are very important, calcium, for example. Learn more about calcium, because that's going to help you produce a nice plant. And then learn about iron, for instance. If you grow citrus, iron is a big deal in the citrus. Okay, so each plant is going to require a different type of nutrient. And then make sure that you learn about pH scale and how does the pH level affect each plant. I'm surrounded right now by blueberries. Blueberries like a very low pH, like more acidic soil. The problem there is in an acidic soil, certain nutrients are not available for that plant. But on the other side of the scale, certain other nutrients are not going to be available for that plant. I'm going to put a picture somewhere in here that kind of shows you what I mean by the availability of nutrients based on the pH scale. Learn more about pH. That's a big important one too. And just to finalize, just like anything else, balance is extremely important. Low nitrogen is bad, but guess what? High nitrogen, too much of it, is also bad. So make sure that you are keeping that level, make sure that you are checking your leaves, checking your EC and pH in the soil, sending your samples to the lab to make sure that you know how your plants are doing day to day. And if you learn that about nutrients, that's a huge start already. And from there, you can take it on yourself and learn a lot more, or watch the next video on this nutrition series. Thank you very much.